leadership paradigms, the old ones, have dismissed the feminine, has dismissed the feminine part. It's about ruling, it's about giving orders, it's about having things done, it's about even abusing earth resources. But now we're talking about aligning the soul intelligence in us so we can birth that inner core, birth that inner seat, birth that single point through this bridge. And birthing is a feminine act. It's giving birth to that new identity, which is a leadership identity.
Illuminance specializes in developing sensory processing sensitivity, a natural high sensory intelligence present in 30% of the population, co-creating with the power of humanity to consciously evolve towards balance. This session features trained high sensory coaches, facilitators and consultants who coach other high sensory people and partner with organizations globally. To contact them directly or to find out about our programs, please see the details in the description.
Hello, hello. It's lovely to be here today. My name is Shireen Maluf, and I'm honored to facilitate this co-creation discussion with all of you today. I suggest we do a first round to introduce ourselves, and then I will introduce our topic for today. Would that be okay? So who would like to go first?
I'm Karen Hunt, and I support high sensory mothers.
Hello, thanks very much, Shireen. And my name is Kemal Shaheed. I'm a high sensory facilitator, and I work mostly with leaders in the not-for-profit and international development sector, help them align with their deeper purpose.
Welcome, Kemal. Thank you. Melina,
Jane. Oh, thanks. Hi, great to be here. I'm Jane Elizabeth Auston. I'm from the UK. I'm a high sensory leader and spiritual connection coach, and I work exclusively with high sensory people, or HSPs, who want to explore their spiritual nature and deepen their connection and alignment. I specialise in working with high sensory people who, like me, are in 12-step recovery from addiction, but you don't have to be 12-step to work with me. You can find me at janeelizabethauston.com and also on the High Sensory People podcast that I co-host every week with Alicia May. Thanks.
welcome, Jane. Melina?
Thanks, Shireen. My name's Melina Zipparo. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and I support women, parents and caregivers navigate the symptoms of burnout, leading towards reconnection to balanced and purposeful living.
Welcome, Melina. I'm Shireen Maluf again. I'm a way shower for sensitive empaths and leaders who feel trapped in unproductive patterns within relationships and systems. And I help them shift from a state of personal fragmentation to the freedom of soul autonomy. I'm also a doctor of musicology, medicine woman, certified and high sensory coach. You can find me at shireenmaluf.com and on LinkedIn. So this will bring us to our topic today. Leadership is undergoing today an identity shift, with leaders redefining themselves and their leadership styles. The question arises, where and how do leaders position themselves in relationship to themselves first, others, and the planet? In the ever-evolving landscape of leadership, a new parameter is emerging, one that has remained largely unexplored in traditional leadership paradigms. This game-changing element is tapping into soul intelligence. Leaders in the modern world are seeking to understand their spiritual nature, to become more authentic and transformative in their leadership styles. Recognition is growing regarding the significance of the connection between human intelligence and the profound depth of soul intelligence. This dynamic interplay between the two opens up realms of unprecedented possibilities and solutions that were previously beyond our imagination. The question arises, how can one tap into this incredible wellspring of soul intelligence? The journey starts with each individual, every leader looking inward to access their unique channel. A leader in a multinational company once sought sessions with me while experiencing heartbreak and undergoing an identity shift. By assisting him in accessing the relational field, he was able to tap into his true self at the soul level. This transformation enabled him to redefine his identity in his daily reality, choosing to relate to his responsibilities and others in his company from what he termed the essential place. Excuse me. This had a ripple effect on his collaborators and employees as he introduced new paradigms of being and relating to others within the company. It becomes evident that by redefining themselves in relation to their soul intelligence, leaders are able to redefine the nature of their leadership style. Here are 3 questions I'd like to address today. Where does the journey begin for leaders to shift from the old leadership paradigms? What are some of the gifts that this connection brings about? And what outcomes, actions could arise from such a journey that leaders can integrate to help others shift from a state of divisions to one of connection? I hope the topic I introduced it clearly. Shall we do another round and tap into this vast topic with hoping that the questions could help us navigate these big realms?
Yeah, absolutely. What a wonderful topic. You introduced it so beautifully. It's sweeping in its scope, isn't it? From the individual to the global, basically. And I suppose what struck me really by way of just kicking this off for with us as a group, where does the journey begin? Where does the journey begin for leaders, for us all? I think of myself as a high sensory leader. I think of us all as high sensory leaders on this conversation. You know, we are leading this movement, I suppose, the redefining of highly sensitive to high sensory. And what does that mean for all high sensory people? And what does that mean for the communities we live in? And what does that mean for our countries and the world? We are a huge, largely untapped resource at the moment. I feel very strongly that all high sensory people have much more within them, which will allow a connection, which, as you say, can bring about unprecedented possibilities and solutions. But where does the journey begin? It usually begins with a moment of crisis. That's where it seems to begin. as you said, Shireen, you were working with a leader through a moment, through a difficult time. I think, they were going through something very difficult personally, and that had brought them to you. And I think that is often how it starts, because I suppose the old saying, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And often we don't realise how broken everything is until we feel broken. I speak for myself here. I had to break to start to heal and mend. And it's that realization, that awareness of something's not right. I need to do something about that. I need to change. I need to change myself. How can I change myself? What does that mean? And that for me has led me on a journey to, to right here, right now, having this really important conversation. But I had to become aware of and become willing to look at the fact that things are not right. Shifting, as you said, from an old paradigm of how I was living to a new paradigm of how I've been living for the last little while, and how, and it's getting stronger, that new paradigm in my own life. And I suppose part of the gifts are coming into awareness of my own high sensory intelligence means I trust myself to talk about things like this. Big issues. I'm just one little human being, but I trust myself to talk about the things that matter to me now. I feel I have something to say about them. And that's because I am more connected with the soul intelligence. As a result of the personal development that I've done, I'm more connected with that than I've ever been. And that's where I think it starts for me. And that's where I think it probably starts for all leaders, all high sensory leaders anyway. First of all, we look inwards, and then we see what's possible.
I really resonate with that, Jane. So when you first started talking, I just, I pictured that moment of crisis almost like an explosion. And up until that explosion, we'd been going out. And the explosion almost, it turns the trajectory back. And I'd written down a couple of quotes from my favorite Sufi thinker, Ibn al-Arabi. He says, "Oh, you who look for the secret, turn around, because the entire secret is to be found within you." And he also says, "Knowledge is a single point, but the ignorant have multiplied it." And I reflect on that in relation to that Delphic maxim, know thyself. And I think everything that you were talking about there in terms of self-awareness, self-understanding, coming into ownership of who you are in a very, at your core, so your authentic self. And it's that coming into ownership, whether it's catalyzed by a crisis, or sometimes it's catalyzed by deep love, and sometimes the two are very closely related. And it's what it is that drives us inwards, so that we can find the seat of the deepest knowledge, which is knowledge that isn't coming from us, but it's coming through us, because it comes from a source that everyone has the potential to tap into and harness if they're in alignment with their authentic self. If they're out of alignment and the world is buffeting them, then they can't tap into that source. So for me, the journey starts with self-knowledge.
That's great.
Yeah,
Wow, Jane, thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
Kemal and Janie, that just had a moment of wow, because I think actually draws me back to a time when Willow was giving a talk, actually, and he was explaining his own journey. And he said that when he got out of his own way, that's when the magic started to happen. And I suppose back then I interpreted it one way, and through my own journey, I'm just seeing more and more the beauty of that statement, because it's a paradox, because yes, he had to get out of his own way, but in order for him to do that, he had to tap into that self-knowledge as well, and that self-discovery. It wasn't a sense of, an ignorance. It wasn't in an ignorant way. It was very much of, a pure self-awareness. And once that was dealt with and tapped into, it allowed him to step into leadership. And I think that is where a lot of leaders, they become misguided, because they're acting on their own instincts, which are coming from a very unaligned place. And, it's a personal fulfillment. Becomes it becomes a very selfish role, because it's feeding, what they need themselves, even though it may be displayed as a leadership role. It's very much, almost a struggle, and it's trying to grasp. They're just trying to grasp at what is actually going to make them feel right themselves, because they haven't tapped into that soul intelligence. And I think, just speaking to what Kemal was saying as well, that soul intelligence, when you can tap into that pure self-awareness, I feel, that beautiful notion of soul intelligence using you as an instrument, rather than us, trying to manipulate and control everything around us. We're in this beautiful receptive mode, where we're letting the soul intelligence come in, and it is guiding us, and it's using us as a way to lead, and to lead from a beautiful, pure place.
Thank you, Melina. I love what's coming through right now. What's being shaped by all these words and insights that Melina, Kemal, and Jane have so far shared. Karen, is there something you feel like sharing?
Yeah, it's as Jane said, a sweeping topic. There's so much that we could talk about here. To go back to your question about where the journey begins, of course, I agree. It's totally within each of us. That's where the journey begins. And I think it's interesting to consider about our leadership style. How do we lead ourselves? How do we lead the community of 300 billion cells in our own body? There's something to be said to connect with that higher self and look at our bodies as we need to look at our bodies as a way of using our body as an instrument, in the way that, Melina, you were talking about with the higher intelligence. But actually, we do lead our own bodies. We are responsible for the cells. We to know ourselves is understanding how we work as human beings. And I think because we have high sensory intelligence, we are also that bridge between, say, whatever your higher power is, whatever you believe in there, your divine self or God or whatever it is, and our human selves. And the fact that we have this high sensory intelligence means that it's actually easier for us to get in touch with that and to be used as that bridge. And we can be used as that bridge with people who don't have as much awareness of themselves as we do, aren't quite as deeply connected as we have the potential to be. And I think also we talked about being in a moment of crisis to help sort of facilitate this shift in leadership style that maybe takes us away from focusing on ourselves and our egos to actually leading others to be the best that they can be, to sort of create this positive ripple effect in the world. But it needn't be crisis, as I think as Kemal was talking about love, any sort of big change. And of course, the thing that is screaming at me right now is motherhood, because that is a huge change. And you really do have to take notice of what's happening within your own body when you're pregnant. And, you know, you're going to give birth to this new being. That's a really physical way of identifying this importance of leadership, because you actually have this other living being within you, which you give birth to. And you absolutely have to understand yourself in order to be the best leader for your child as well. And of course, that's a huge topic in itself as well, which perhaps we'll talk about one day.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Karen. There's so much, so rich. The journey begins with a crisis. The crisis is the one of the internal identity with the external codes and norms, isn't it? It's with this internal identity that has not yet discovered itself with the social and cultural pressure, and this is how it should be done, and this is how we've been doing it for decades or years, and if you're a leader, you should do this, but there's something inside that says, no, there is this quest for this identity. So is it a journey of leadership or is it a journey of identity? And I heard once a leadership coach giving a conference, and she said that in a study held at Stanford University, it turned out that to be a leader, it begins with finding our core identity. It begins with that. So the journey is a crisis for finding that seat, which you talked about, Kemal, the core, the point, the single point, getting out from the multiplicity of ignorance to finding that single point in us. And that single point is a bridge, isn't it? That bridge that you talked about also. That bridge that would be the alignment between the soul intelligence that comes through us, in us. So there's no more separation between soul intelligence that is untouchable, that is invisible, that is flowing, and us. And this is where the magic happens. You also talked about magic, the magic of birthing that leader. It is really about birthing, isn't it? So leadership paradigms, the old ones, have dismissed the feminine, has dismissed the feminine part. It's about ruling, it's about giving orders, it's about having things done, it's about even abusing earth resources. But now we're talking about aligning the soul intelligence in us so we can birth that inner core, birth that inner seat, birth that single point through this bridge. And birthing is a feminine act. It's giving birth to that new identity, which is a leadership identity. And no wonder that the journey into leadership is a journey into self-identity first. By birthing the inner leader is finding the path to how we find this leadership style so we can share it with others.
Shireen, just as you were talking about the bridge, because that's what really resonated in what Karen said with me as well. I was also thinking about bridge, and there's an idea about bridging leadership. And I was thinking about the image of a bridge, and that a bridge can't be strong and stable unless the 2 points are strong that connects the bridge. So this is where we have to be in alignment and very strong and stable around that single point to then be able to put our to construct the bridge that will connect us with others. And then really what you were talking about in terms of that feminine receptivity, I think is so crucially important. And just before our meeting today, I was thinking about an interaction I had with someone who was telling me about a funder that we can potentially talk to for our project. And he was saying, oh yeah, and you'll have to be quick because he hasn't got much time and he's got a lot of, he'll be very busy. So whatever you say has to be quick, has to be to the point, and has to be, like the elevator pitch. And I was just thinking there's so much wrong with that notion of got to be quick, got to be done, urgent, quick, knee-jerk. That's the masculine energy that sometimes is necessary in the world, but so much in leadership would be healthier if we just slowed down a bit. And if we just allowed things to come through and to be the conduit, because when we're in, and we've talked about this before, when we're in that frenetic mental space of masculine energy, then we can't tune in to the quietness. And when the quietness is what's necessary in leadership, but it's been so undervalued and devalued in what people and how people talk about leadership. And that's where
Thank you for bringing this in, Kemal. May I just say one thing, because we associate being quick with masculinity, but this is our society's perception of masculinity. If we go back to native traditions, masculine energy is not like that. Actually, masculine energy is very patient and very slow and very poised. The frenetic rhythm that we think is masculine is not actually. It's not masculinity. It's something else. Maybe it's false authority. It's something that we think leadership is about, but it's certainly not about the original and authentic masculine energy. And this I've tapped in my knowledge and relationship with native traditions, wherever. North America and South America, in the Middle East, the masculine energy is it's so all-encompassing that it doesn't need to be frenetic. It's amazingly vast and slow and quiet. So it was essential because I feel we really need to shift that notion of what is masculine. It's crucial to these both ends that you talked about, so we can really bridge the leadership on both ends, masculine and feminine.
Yeah, I love that clarification about what is true masculine energy. And I can't, speak to that particularly, but I love that it is slow and trusting and and grounded and in faith and expansive and all of those things. And what we have come to believe as masculine energy, I suppose it's just because we've seen it modeled, haven't we, around us by like all the busy people, the busy, important men who are running companies and countries in a ultimately rather grasping and self-serving way. That's ultimately what's happened. A self-serving struggle. And it comes this freneticness, it's fear-based as well, isn't it? It's if I don't try really hard, if I'm not really busy, if I'm not seen to be being really busy and presenteeism, like present, I'm there, I'm busy, I'm important, then I'm not doing things right. I'm not doing my job right. People will see, people will know, people will judge. So it's all about that as well, it seems to me, this kind of this subverted masculine energy gone all wrong. And, and the opposite of that really, I think, is leaders as ambassadors, almost leaders as ambassadors for source, for truth, for what's right, for what's trying to come, for what's trying to flow to us and through us. We are just, I love what you said, Karen, about our bodies being the vehicle, being you were saying the instrument, and I thought, they're the vehicle, really. We're just vehicles. We're just vehicles for energy. That's it. We all look different. All our vehicles are tuned slightly differently. So the energy comes to us all in a really unique and uniquely useful way. But, I guess ideally we're tuned so that the energy can come through us as ambassadors for it. And what happens is we block it, don't we? We're like, oh, I'm going to put my foot on the brake because I think I know best. I think I know what should happen here. And so we block it because that's really, that's the society we're in. We've seen it modeled around us, the freneticness, the masculine energy, like subverted. And then the kind of feminine energy subverted into codependence and people pleasing. This is so, and ultimately that's not what divine feminine energy is at all. So and then the kind of the going inwards as well. What I was thinking about that, I love what you said about the bridge. We need to be our end of the bargain, our end of the bridge needs to be really firm and strong, as unshakable as possible, really. That means we'll be able to provide a more stable bridge from us to wherever what comes through us needs to go. And it's like in getting out of our own way, in unblocking that channel, we reach a clarity of purpose and direction, a point of clarity the knowing, which removes the need to be grasping and frenetic and busy. And I've been thinking about this just in my own sort of, just like in what I need to get done in the next couple of weeks or in the next week. And I do think that as high sensory people, when we are in clarity and connection, we're incredibly effective, and we can actually get done in 4 hours what it might take somebody who's like, way out of alignment. It might take them 8 hours. It removes the need to be busy and frenetic, because when we're in alignment, we are just much more effective, because we're being ambassadors for something that is much greater and more powerful and more purposeful than any of us as individuals.
Thank you, Jane. I think we've got about maybe 5 to 10 more minutes, right? Karen, Melina, would you like to come in?
I think what's coming up for me is very much speaking to what Jane was saying as well about, the feminine and masculine. I think leadership in itself comes across as a very domineering term, where you've got a leader with, at some level, leading subservience, and it's very much a hierarchy, and we've been living under hierarchies. And I think as we evolve, and as leadership does evolve and becomes more conscious, it will very much, the hierarchy and the divisions will very much be collapsed, and in the sense that people will feel empowered when they've got a conscious leader who's aligned because to their soul intelligence, because that leader will see everyone that the leader leads. They'll really see them, and those people that the leader is leading will feel that. They'll feel seen. Probably, it'll be a gift that has, been given to them, that they won't even understand why they're feeling empowered and why they're feeling motivated and all of these things. And I think that in itself is, one of the greatest gifts that, once you can connect to that, that purity and see the other through to their soul. That's a beautiful way to lead, because then that person will feel empowered and, will be, will feel like, one day I might want to be a leader myself, rather than this is where I sit on the hierarchy.
Great.
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. I really resonate with that, Melina. And we were talking earlier about being in the flow. So both sort of Kemal was talking about that before, and Jane. And I found that when I'm just allowing the thing that I need to do, or the idea that's around, just it comes through really quickly, and then I can just do it. And I could have spent a long time trying to figure something out with my head. But if you just allow it to sort of percolate a bit and switch off, and then it can come through. And then you also have the energy comes through as well. And I think if you've got practices that you do to help support yourself, the energy will be there for you. And you really need to pay attention to that flow within your own body, your own rhythm as well. And when you do that, then that's when the magic happens as well. And I really like what you were saying, Melina, about the about the energy of a leader and how you can empower those that you're leading. And I really do believe that the best leaders are the ones that create the leaders. And so if we can tap into that, you don't have followers, you have leaders. And when we're in alignment, when we're truly being authentic to who we are, that gives permission to other people. Oh, okay, this is what I can do. I don't just have to do what you say. I can find out who I am and I can follow myself. I can follow my own lead, and to give permission for people to do that. And I think that is a way of being that role model for others. And I do feel that the work that we're doing just now here today with this shift in understanding of sensitivity being a weakness in our society, being a problem for us, and shifting that to having high sensory intelligence is really crucial, because it's not just for other high sensory people to understand the importance of this, but it's for everybody. It's easier for us to get in touch because we feel so deeply than it is for others. But that's why we make such great leaders, because the people who don't have this deep sense of feeling and understanding that we do can still benefit from this, because they can then perhaps look to themselves as well and find that alignment and that flow within themselves too, because we're modeling that.
There's a very relevant line in the Tao Te Ching, Karen, speaking to exactly what you're talking about in terms of, the best leaders are the ones that when the work is done, the people look around and say, we did this. And the leader isn't even seen, because for exactly the reasons you just gave.
That's great. Well, I think it's about time to wrap it up. The clock is ticking. What I heard is emerging from this co-creation discussion is maybe letting go of this frenetic driven energy that is today defining what leadership is. Slow down, be quiet, invite the connection, the flow of the soul intelligence, which invites leaders to balance their masculine and feminine energies in relation to who they are at the core level and how they step into their leadership so that they see others at their soul level. And what arises is the we that defines maybe the future of leadership, the future of conscious leadership. Is there anything any one of you would like to add before we wrap up today?
I just think, as always, this has been a wonderful discussion, wonderful topic. I've loved what's come through, and I hope we can revisit the leadership theme again before long. Thank you, Shireen, for leading us through it so beautifully.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Melina. Thank you, Kemal. Thank you, Karen, for co-creating and co-hosting as well this discussion.